I certainly do not have the qualifications, to call myself a professor. Not even just a professor of music, but much less professor of French literature, like Mr. Sky is. So what you're gonna get is mild analysis, if you could even call it that, from a film graduate, or not graduate, a person who graduated from a film program. So take that however you will. To be honest, I've written so many versions of this script, and none of them I was ever very happy with. Even the ones I've recorded and edited, I just never published them, which is kind of funny. There's just probably 3 fully edited versions of this video on my computer somewhere, but I wasn't happy with any of them. So what is so difficult about this? Well, we're talking about music here. More specifically, we're talking about the music of Sugar Cherry. Now, if you don't know who Sugar Cherry is, I don't really blame you. He's a very small artist at the moment, maybe 5,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, so I don't really know how accurate that monthly listener thingy is. So we'll just say very underground. In fact, actually, my most popular video on this channel is a video on the first Sugar Cherry album, Isn't It Wonderful, which came out almost a year ago to the day. And that video, did very well for me. It hasn't reached 1,000 views, but it's at 800 something. And for that, and for me, that's pretty good. So obviously, I am clout hungry. I'm a clout chaser. I only make videos on trending topics. So I thought, why not release the sequel to my Sugar Cherry video almost a whole year later? And that's what we have here. Essentially, from that first album, 2 more projects followed suit a month after each other. We had the very short It Was Almost You, more like an EP, I guess, but they're all pretty short. And then the self-titled Sugar Cherry album, which was supposed to be, I guess, at one point the final Sugar Cherry release, but recently, this month, or last month, we got a new Sugar Cherry song called Yan Sommer. So this is great news for all the sugar rushes, the Sugar Cherry heads, out there, such as myself. And honestly, I wouldn't really recommend watching my original video on Sugar Cherry. The album Isn't It Wonderful, because I feel like I ramble a lot in that video, trying to get to a point that I never really answer, which is very funny to me. But to very briefly summarize, my thoughts on Isn't It Wonderful were more so about not necessarily the contents of the music, but how we as audience members and listeners engage with music that is very, very personal to the artist in a very explicit and implicit way. Because all music is technically personal to the artist, but when it comes to music like A Crow Looked at Me by Mount Eerie, or Skeleton Tree from Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, we have lyrical content that is very upfront. And basically my video on Isn't It Wonderful was how do we engage with music like that, with art that isn't, I guess, meant to be massly consumed or for everyone to listen to, So yeah, that was the struggle of that video and why I enjoyed the album so much. So for this video, I struggled kind of to think of a way to talk about the next 2 projects because I didn't really have an angle per se. I didn't have an angle or a catchy title for the YouTube video other than this is some really good music. I think more people should listen to this. And truthfully, it really is as simple as that. I think the music that followed is really just as good as Isn't It Wonderful. So I was just racking my brain, probably thinking too hard of how to come up with an angle for this. But I think the simplest way is just to say that, trust me, bro, this is some good shit right here. I mean, I'm sure I'll think of some sort of clickbaity thumbnail and title for this video, to get those views up. It could be those annoying thumbnails these albums will break you, or the saddest album ever made. with big yellow text and stuff. Like this 3-run album is insane. All masterpieces. To sell you on the records, essentially they're very short, very lo-fi in production. Sets of like indie folk, indie rock kind of cuts. If you're a big fan of like really early Alex G, the lo-fi fidelity of Teen Suicide and Car Seat Headrest, I would say it also kind of reminds me a lot of Daniel Johnston, especially in the recording quality, and some of like the vocal performances on these songs are very not exactly they're kind of interesting, weird, unique sometimes. The way his vocals are like mixed and processed on some of these songs feels a bit otherworldly and not really human. Very strange sometimes, but in a really good way. I would say this is probably most evident on the last song of It Was Almost You, the very beautiful and heartbreaking, but very hard to say because it's a very long title. I'm going to put it on the screen here because I can't remember it right now. But that song, really beautiful. But the high registered, voice towards the middle of the song is very strange, but nonetheless very emotionally potent. And I would say, I think some people might call the music on all 3 of these projects. I feel like some people would say it sounds unfinished or maybe underwritten, but I don't think that at all. Like, sure, a lot of the songs never really reach a 3-minute mark, but I don't think that's any fault of, Sugar Cherry as a songwriter, per se. I think he pretty much got the point across for the emotion of the song in the time it took. Not everything has to be the standard 3 minutes. And if you, try to dig into the lyrics of some of these songs, it's very, devastating poetry, I think. He does a lot with a very short amount of runtime, which I think is very impressive. The imagery that he evokes is very haunting. There's a lot of ghostly imagery going around in all of these projects, and not just from the lyrics themselves, but the actual production of the records and his vocal performance as well lends that air of forgotten time, something that you find in like the back of a record store that's like dusty and stuff. It's all this, when you listen to the records, you hear like the tape reversing, the tape warping and stuff. It's very cool, like texturally in your ears. But it also feels like the actual song and project could literally fall apart at any second. Or some of these songs even feel like they're, just barely held together in the actual tape deck, such as A Beautiful World, I think, when it has that sort of like looping, it's kind of a looping song that just towards the end like crumbles and like falls apart. It's very, very cool stuff. But yeah, the EP, It Was Almost You, is probably the most straightforward of the 3. It's pretty much a very short set of acoustic ballads, acoustic songs, whatever you want to call them. And they're very, very pretty, very beautiful stuff. The only like sort of shoegazy rocking song is the song Oh God, which, I don't know what any of the lyrics are on this thing. They're not posted anywhere, which is kind of awesome, actually. I like the mystery that it invites the listener to, so you don't get the full picture of any of these songs, really, because you can't exactly make out what he's saying, which is cool. I like it. You can only sort of grab bits and bops from each song. And the homespun quality of much of the music released under Sugar Cherry is very endearing, and it really lends a sense of authenticity to the music. I really like how a lot of these songs feature, I guess, voice recordings, and I don't know if they're like real voice memos. They could be sampled from any number of things, but they're very cool whenever they pop up. Sometimes very unsettling, sometimes pretty funny, such as in the case of I've Known for a While, where the song ends on a sort of voicemail of somebody talking about how much money they can get for selling all of this trash. It's funny. So the Sugar Cherry self-titled is different in the sense that the songs really aren't as immediate as they were on Isn't It Wonderful and It Was Almost You. A lot of these songs are based on building instrumentals, ambience, a lot of looping as well in this project, which is interesting because it really contrasts It Was Almost You and Isn't It Wonderful. The songs on the self-title also sound really, really crunchy. Like more so than the last two, which have a sort of softness to them, even in the noisier bits, like on the song Heroin or Veins from It Was Almost You. The songs on the self-titled, once again, crunchy in the production. Songs like The Way You Live, when it goes into the chorus, where like the guitar feedback and just the noise envelops the entire soundscape. Wow, it really is something to behold. And even on the opening track, Heaven, which starts, it's like a horror movie soundtrack, the way it begins, with these like distorted like shots of like strings, then turning into this like down-tuned piano, and the vocals on it are so like hushed and, you know, buried in the mix, but it is some real haunting stuff on the self-titled. More so than ever, like the self-titled, just the aura and the vibe of all the songs on there is really honestly reflects the album art, which to me looks like, you know, a photo shot on like expired film. And I recently did not really a project I shot on this very old Chinese expired film from the 90s, and all my photos came out developed in this, you know, extremely dark red. It was like if you took photos or screenshots while wearing the Virtual Boy headset. But the album art for the self-titled looks exactly like, you know, expired film, which lends more to the vibe of, you know, these songs, these projects being like a relic of the past, or something you're not supposed to hear that you unearthed, and you're hearing a long lost, long forgotten songwriter, and these are like their final projects they ever put out, which I think is really cool, you know. And like I said, the songs on the self-titled are strange, you know. They're strange in a way. When I first heard or listened to the self-titled, I was unsure if I actually liked it. It was very confusing to me. I was thrown off by it because I really was expecting more of the immediacy that I got from the previous two projects. But as the more I listened to it, the more I had time to sit down with it, it really kind of reveals itself to me as a really, really beautiful piece of work. And honestly, it might be my favorite of the three Sugar Cherry projects. It has a really beautiful closing track. I Just Want You to Want Me Like I Want You. I hope I got that right. Which is the only acoustic cut on that entire project. It's very pretty, very depressing in the lyrical content. And once again, another song on that self-titled project that is built on repetition and loops, you know, which works really well. I really like how much he gets out of, you know, very short phrases, but these phrases that he comes up with are so potent. It almost doesn't really matter that they repeat so often or that the songs are so short, because they hit you and then they leave you, and then you just want more and more. So I wish I could say that I have some, you know, grand analysis for the sort of 3-project run, but I think in trying to think of a, you know, bigger picture thesis statement about the projects, I guess wrote myself into a corner where I just couldn't produce anything that I felt satisfying about. Yeah, I just think more people should be listening, you know, and I hope you do as well. And that's really all I gotta say about these 3 projects. This video took a year to make, and I don't know why. Here's hoping for more sugar cherry in the future. I love sugar cherry. And that's it. Personal anecdote. Yep.